Hopefully. Look at that.
Excellent. Okay, welcome to the Astro Cafe for January 15th. We're going to be starting off with a presentation by Darren, who's, I think, all ready to, are you ready to go, Darren? On
Yeah.
Virtual reality and the observatory, I assume?
Yep.
Perfect.
Cool. So, hi everyone. Thank you for letting me present this work that I've been doing for the last couple of months. It's at a pretty exciting point, and I work on it when I get the chance, if I'm not busy working on my regular day job. So I've kind of broken it down into the process of how I've been going through it, and it's not perfectly structured, but I'll share my screen and you'll get to see kind of what my process has been so far and what I have. Let's see. Okay, so can everyone see my screen okay? Perfect.
Yes, we can.
Okay, so I just kind of mocked everything up for the presentation in software called Figma. Because I was able to just copy and paste everything in here, and I use this pretty regularly for doing design concepts and whatnot. So when I first started this, it was kind of out of the blue. Some of you know my story of how I got into this, but I went up to the observatory this summer for the first time and just really didn't know that this was even here and all this stuff was here. So I work on VR, virtual reality development for a company called ArborXR that manages virtual reality headsets for enterprise companies. And so quite a few headsets in our product so far, but I'm always looking for an interesting project. And when I saw the telescope and the observatory, I was just blown away. I was like, I have to make this in VR. This is amazing. And so I started the process of contacting people and setting up dates and starting to get to the things that I required to model and build the application that I'm working on. So the first thing I did was I flew my drone and I captured reference data that I could then process using a technique called photogrammetry with software called reality capture. So the process I did was I flew my drone and I used this software called Drone Deploy, which is an app on your phone, and you can do a lawnmower pattern. And so at the end, I ended up taking a 360 image so I can grab the backdrop and have more reference information about like how far you can see and kind of what's on the horizon. So this is a 360 image that could be dropped into a virtual reality headset. So it kind of wraps all the way around you, but it's just good for reference and just another good piece of information. So I created a little video here of the processing. So you can see the lawnmower pattern that the application ends up doing. And I did some manual flights to get areas that are not seen by that back and forth lawnmower pattern. So yeah, I just kind of zoomed around. So this is the software called Reality Capture. You put all the images into it. And what it does is it creates a point cloud, which is very similar to LiDAR. But in some cases, it's not as good because if there's a lot of reflections, like there was on the top of the dome, you don't get the data. It's incomplete data. So, but it's really good for what I want. It's cheap to do. It's fast. And gives me a lot of good reference that I can come back to at home and not have to go up there time and time again to see angles and things that I might have missed. So yeah, so this shows off the pattern. So I did two altitudes of like a lawnmower pattern, and then I did a circular pattern that goes around, and I manually control that, but I set a point of interest and just kind of pull the drone back every time it does a circle around the observatory. And then I flew, you can see down here, I wanted to get the entrance because there's a lot of detail in there. So I flew the drone even closer and I flew around and up and down looking at the entrance so I could get all the details of that. And so after this, I
Do you need special permission to do that?
So what's cool about the observatory is it's right in between two aerodromes. So the boundary of the Victoria International Airport and the boundary of Harbor Air there's a gap in between by Elk Lake and the observatory. And so to fly a drone, you need a basic license now to fly a drone anywhere. So if you had a basic license, you can go fly it in that area, but because the observatory is on private land, that's also government, then you need permission from somebody at the facility, which I had Dennis Crabtree, who was with me at the time. And there was another drone pilot there as well. But I do have my advanced drone license, so I could get the authorization to fly anywhere as long as I put in the flight plan and everything else that you have to put in to get access. And so this is what ended up resulting. So out of that point cloud that you saw that I just showed you with reality capture, this is kind of the result that comes out. There's like, I could go and try and fix a lot of this stuff by merging it and going through the images and doing these anchoring of the points. But I didn't need it to be that detailed. I just need to do rough edges of it. It doesn't need to be like extremely precise. I'm not doing I'm not trying to remodel this and give it to some architect or engineer, right? So it's just for my reference. And so this is really good. I could bring this into software, 3D software, and just kind of trace over it and have a good idea of proportions and everything. And if you look, there's like quite a bit of detail in the front entranceway. And then same with the telescope. So this is just, again, helps me for reference. And then from there, Dennis also helped me find some of the original blueprints and some that were recreated. Actually, most of these were recreated in like, I think it was the 70s. And so I took pictures of these and then adjusted the perspectives on my phone, actually, and then cleaned it up in Photoshop and created a better image that I could then use that as image planes and image references within the 3D application, which that takes me to the modeling process, which I did in Blender. And so Blender is extremely powerful software that's free and has a lot of tools that's incredible. So so here's the model now. It's in a blueprint kind of style. But you can see the front entrance. I got a lot of the details, and I got, the window panes and everything like that. And then from the blueprints, I was able to get the structure. So I'm going to take the skin away. And so you could see I got all the girders. And the other thing I did was I got a lot of the archive images. And so I used this other reference image application called PureRef. And I could take all the images and put it into one area. So then I could just go through them versus having to like scroll through some sort of photo viewer or something like that, which I've done before. And until I found this, this is perfect for it. So then I could look at stuff like the road. I could look at, what the older images look like and get more details that I might have missed from the drone, right? Because you think even when you fly drones and automation and you take thousands of images, there's still something you miss. It happens every single time. So the more pictures you can have from anyone else, the better. So I got all these archive images. So I was able to look through the assembly process and look at more details, how things go together, the proportions of things, the scale, all these other little details. And from there, I could come back in here and kind of just eyeball it to make it work. And so right now, the things I'm still working on is just the front entrance, a couple of the windows, the shutters, there's like a secondary girder that goes in here that I want to place in. The shutters, I was having quite a bit of trouble trying to interpret like how this top section goes. And I also want to be able to put the platform in, because in VR, you can kind of go back in time and view the telescope as they did originally. So you can be able to stand on the platform, climb up, look through the telescope like it was originally used. So that's one of the things I'd like to do. So trying to find some good images of that original viewing platform and how it all went together. and how it works. That's another challenge I'll have to get to when I start to need to model that. So just going through all the little details, and then you can see here's the interior if I take the structure away. So I'm starting to work on the telescope and all the details of the telescope. I got most of the stairs and railings and details around that. I have to do the railings here. And I got the cutouts for the floor where they drop the mirror through to do the polishing, the beams and everything else. So that's the modeling process. So the reference stuff leads into that. And then after that, what I did is I started doing something kind of completely different and putting all of this into Unity and going through star data. So star catalogs, trying to map. So this is a 3D model that'll be in virtual reality, but you're going to be looking up at the stars and you're going to have to relate, how does this telescope operate? How does it point at the stars? So I needed star data. So that was the next thing. I just started searching the internet, trying to learn about catalogs, trying to learn about the categorizations and all the fields and except the things that go with it. I'm still, pretty new to it and don't fully understand it, but that got me, I got that going and I started building that into the app. And so part of the thing that kind of went with the star catalog was also bringing the telescope to life. I have another little video here I can open up. And so this is what it's looking like in VR with the stars. So I know that kind of on the best skies in the world, I think you could see with the naked eye about 10,000 stars. I don't know if I'm correct with that, but that's what I've read. So in here, I have 100,000 stars. And obviously that's too much, but I wanted to see, like, what ends up needing to happen is I want to put 100,000 stars, because when you zoom in on a area of the sky, you'll end up seeing like those stars, and you have a long exposure, those stars come into view. So I need to be able to have that data accessible, but you're not going to see it. So I will have some way of, based on like how faint the star is or how bright it is, that it'll be seen and only shown when you look through a telescope through the view. So I wanted to see how many stars could I have on a mobile device, and through a special technique called a compute shader, I was able to actually, with no processing issues or frame drops, like hitting the proper frames for virtual reality, have 100,000 stars in the sky, which I was pretty happy with that. And then so the other thing was then bringing the telescope to life. So from here, I'm outside, and I had some issues when I imported the shell, but I'll work on that. It's all kind of placeholder / getting things to work. So I'll just kind of zoom forward where I'm kind of walking through everything. This is before I had done the stairs. So I don't have like a very strict process of working on one thing and finishing it. I just kind of jump around, work on modeling. Okay, I'm kind of bored of working on modeling right now. I want to try and solve the telescope operating. So then I get the telescope operating, and I was like, okay, now I've spent 2 weeks on this. I'm tired of this. Let me go back to modeling because I'm happy where that's at. And it kind of goes back and forth. So it's all hand tracking. So nice about the new VR headsets, you could use your hands and you could poke things, which is a little more natural to do than trying to figure out controllers, although controllers are more precise in your actions. But with this, I have a bunch of catalogs that I mentioned earlier that I got in here. And then so I was trying to figure out listing them. The user interface still needs some work. There's bugs with it, but this is a whole new UI framework that I'm learning at the same time, because it uses the hands. And so, yeah, you can scroll through, pick a star, and then what happens is the telescope, it automatically goes to it. I'm going to have it animate, so then it'll work like a real telescope, and then the dome works. And then if I hit the tracking, it's sped up a lot, but it'll track the sky. And then what it does is when you hit the star, and I'm in VR in this point, so it moves around. It's quite shaky sometimes, but it's pretty stable. When you click on a star, on the table here, let's see. So on the table, the UI was having some trouble. It'll give you all the data about that star. So it'll tell you its size in relation to our sun. It'll tell you how many light years it is from us. It'll tell you whatever data is associated in the catalog with that star will show up, and it changes the color of it based on the temperature as well. So there's a lot of information that comes up with that. I envision having it so there'll be like a zoomable interaction to it. So it'll go like from, you could zoom in on our solar system and then zoom out to the galaxy, and then have like the constellations kind of around and see, give you a better orientation of what you're looking at, what the telescope's pointing at, and where we are. But that'll be the next phase of me working this stuff out. And so after this, if you notice, there's kind of a landscape in here. So I kind of started working on the terrain. So what I'd like to do is have like a realistic terrain around, and I want to also put the original office building in, not with all the new extensions, but the original one, and then have the library in there with some more like lessons for basic astronomy. And so I'll have what I'm envisioning is that you'll start off on Elk Lake, and we'll talk about like what light is and what an observer is, like some definitions that I think people kind of miss out on, some of the more fundamental explanations of things, and that kind of you get confused. At least I've been confused about. And so start there, and then I'll have this like portal effect that will take you to the different locations in virtual reality. So the next thing that I worked on after this was landscapes, which happens to be LiDAR data, GIS information. And so after I did the scan, I didn't have a big enough scan of the area. And so I went on the internet, looked for LiDAR data elevation maps, but they're quite low resolution. They're like 10 meters, the publicly available data elevation maps. And so I actually remembered that 10 years ago, I requested all the LiDAR data from the CRD, and they sent me to the various municipalities that had it. And I ended up getting all the LiDAR data for Saanich and Victoria that was just sitting on a hard drive for like a decade now. And then I thought, hey, wait a second, I have really high resolution landscaping data. Let me process that and make the area. So I processed the data, the LiDAR data, to make a data terrain map. So that's a map with no trees. It's that elevation or data terrain. I always forget, DTM and DEM. So there's one that has all the trees and the bumps and everything, and then there's one that doesn't have it. It's just the surface of the Earth. So I processed this one to have no trees, no bumps, no buildings, all of it's taken out. So you have this nice thing called a height map, and you place this into 3D applications, and it creates the landscape pattern. This one's called a hill-shaded relief map. It just looks cool. It doesn't really do anything for me. I just thought it looked awesome. And then because with LiDAR, the laser hits the ground and it has different returns, you can process the data to do medium-sized, high vegetation, and then you can take building data, which is like shape maps that I found from Saanich, and use those as masks to mask out the building data from the land and get like really clean vegetation maps. So like this one here is the medium density, which is there's a lot more medium height vegetation than there is higher like trees and forests. So this one I can use to procedurally generate bushes everywhere. And then this one I could use to procedurally generate trees. And then, you know, I could go around, take pictures, what trees are in the area, get a catalog of those trees, and just say, place them. So then I don't have to go around manually placing everything. And so then that creates the landscape and the environment. And so from there, I ended up creating some renders that look pretty realistic. And I'm going to end up calling the application light wave observer, taking out the E. So there's some emphasis on virtual reality because everybody likes to put VR or AR or something in their VR apps. And then this is a view from Elk Lake looking, and just over there is the observatory. And this is where I kind of envisioned starting and talking about some fundamental astronomy stuff. And then the other picture, here's one looking kind of over the view. I still have this black, because I'm telling you, buddy, you'll notice it, but this black background needs to be filled in with some distant terrain. And then here's another image that I did from this information. So this is including this landscaping terrain and procedurally generated trees. And then here's an older one. And so this one has the processed photogrammetry telescope data that I was just putting in place because it kind of filled in the picture a little better. But I've done a lot more work since this image. And I think that kind of touches on most of the stuff that I've done so far. I guess actually, no, I do have one other thing. I could show you UI concepts. So then I have some concepts for like how to lay out the user interface. And then I just work on it here, like what there could be. So my goals right now are just work on the terrain, get the environment done, and then from there I'll create a syllabus or a curriculum of some kind. Cool. So that kind of concludes everything I've done so far.
Thanks, Darren. That's amazing. I look forward to seeing that in virtual reality.
Yeah. Yeah, David?
Well, Darren, congratulations. I got really excited when you started talking about introducing the time element to it. So that would be kind of really cool to be able to see the dome at different stages of its life. And yeah, that's great. I have a background in GIS, so for me, I kind of really like the concept of being able to move around in the space and using it as a vehicle for other information is just great. It's just that one step beyond menus for categorizing data or categorizing information. So excellent.
Thank you. Yeah, so yeah, and that's what I envisioned, that the environment's it's such a beautiful environment where the telescope is, and everything around it is so unique. Like I would argue, I know it's the second largest telescope in Canada, but I argue it's definitely in the best location. Because like it's on top of a small little rocky forested old growth mountain with a lake and ocean, and it's just such epic scenery. So I think the setting, like having that setting, and then having a lot of historical Canadian achievements within that, plus like fundamental astronomy information, I think should make it pretty compelling and captivating.
Yeah, certainly. I think it's something definitely like a plus on planetarium software where you're only showing catalogs and showing information. Very useful, but this kind of gives it an extra boost.
Yeah.
Lauri, did you have a question?
Yes, thank you, Darren. I've been kind of watching Darren kind of go from when he first came to being able to kind of talk to people, and then saying, hey, I think I've got something started here, and seeing this is just amazing. Thank you so much for the work you're putting all in for this, and we're looking forward to the day when we can have some of the students take our virtual reality headsets and go with this, or put it up at like at a star party, and have people putting this on at a star party and working through this. So a couple of other things I wanted to ask you is, are you considering at all putting in anything about some of the history of Plaskett himself?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
So what I want to touch on first is just some questions about, I don't know, existence, about light, and before I get to the point where like people are making discoveries of observations, which Plaskett comes into, right? So I mean, it may change from there, but that's kind of the idea that I have. But yeah, there will be a lot on that. A lot of Canadian, because that's a big part of the Canadian history. So I will highlight that quite a bit. And when I get to that part, that's when I'll probably reach out more for information to be accurate, and like does it seem like it flows properly, or
And we also need to get Dave Balaam into here, because he would love this. So he's one of the main astronomers up there, and has done a huge amount of work on asteroids and that kind of thing. So he'd be able to give you lots of information too. So
perfect. Yeah, and another thing I have planned for this is a multi-user experience. So you can have a virtual star party, essentially, right? So and I would call it star party as well. So you would be able to make rooms, and I forget, I know you can do up to 8 people, but I seem to think that they've increased that limit to like something like 64 people could be in virtual reality at the same time. And I want to launch this on Meta's platform, because they have really they have nice avatars. They're not amazing or anything, but their avatars out of the box are pretty interesting to work with. And so whatever you make for yourself as an avatar, you can just come right on into the app and have a multi-user experience and see everyone else that in that. And I've used it quite a bit for meetings at work, because we're fully remote, and it's awesome.
well, thank you for all the work you've done on this. Looking forward to continuing with on this journey. Thank you.
Yeah, no
Yeah.
problem.
Thanks, Darren.
I have a question. This is Joe Carr in the audience. You talked about a VR tour starting at Elk Lake, and I must confess I'm a VR nobody. I know nothing about it. But is that like a set tour? Is that just a starting point for people to enter, or how does that work?
Yeah, so I think it'd be just kind of a starting point. And then what I have planned, or I don't know if any of you watched the show Loki on Disney Plus. There's so when they travel around, and I was inspired by this, and I kind of am gonna use the same portal effect. They have these like 3-dimensional rectangles that are kind of oranged out doors that they use as portals. So in virtual reality, one of the guidelines is not to have people kind of floating around too much, because they get VR motion sickness. So if I were to, like in the video I was just kind of strafing around, that tends to get people sick. So if I want to appeal to the largest audience, the best way to do that is to teleport places. So you would start off at Elk Lake, looking at the sky, talking about some basic stuff, and from there you would be able to get to the menu and portal through to the various set locations within the environment. And so that portal I'm envisioning would be a 3-dimensional rectangular square that you just walk through, and then it gets you all the way to the other side of the map.
David, do you have another?
Yeah, I do have another question, Darren. I can see how you're basically building a framework right now, and you're conceptualizing how this thing will work.
Yeah.
How far away are we? Like you seem to be moving at pretty fast pace. I mean, would you be like a year or 2 years away?
So the first phase is to get the environment done. From there, the story can be told. So
yeah. So then you're going to be looking for narrators. You're going to be looking for content, right? At that point.
at that point, then I'm going to be looking for like, yeah, how do I create the story or the lessons
Right.
within this space? I plan on selling the application, and then, you know, kind of using proceeds to further the application as well. So, but for anyone in the group, it'd just be free, like, and for the students and all that are going to be using it, and the observatory, it'll just be free. So,
I mean, I can
yeah.
also see this if you get the framework generalized enough, and I'm sure you would,
Yeah.
it would be translatable to other environments, other sites.
Yeah, and so this would be like the proof of concept, or at least like the first part. And you know, there could be other amazing telescopes that are added as part of it. I do want to add like all the types of telescopes through history, and how you would look at the night sky with them, and how they would what type of view you would see, and what if you were to use filters, you know. And I have an idea to do the full light spectrum, like, so how we capture UV light and X-rays. So you'd be able to switch your view between that, either maybe looking through a special scope, or just like switching the VR view. Like, hey, I'm looking at X-ray right now. I mean, it would just be a representation. But some stuff like that to be able to go through the full electromagnetic spectrum in VR. So then it's more of a tangible learning experience than theoretical. Like, I mean, there's going to be theory, but you'd be able to kind of interact with all of that theory.
Right. No, it's really great ideas. I wish you the best. It sounds like a bit of a gargantuan project, though.
Yeah. But I mean, right, the first thing is the environment. And once I get to the environment, and like I said before, artificial intelligence is making things extreme, like it speeds up things a lot. ChatGPT, even doing narrations now, you can use ChatGPT to create the script. You could use another application that takes the script and does the voiceovers, and you could have thousands of different voices. And then the automation of animation for characters is even faster than it's ever been. So, yeah, I've been following a lot of this stuff for a long time. And
you mentioned adding more telescopes. I
Yeah.
hope you realize there are 3 more telescopes on Observatory Hill. In addition
Yeah.
to the, you could start there if you really want more work.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
Leslie is keen on the question.
Yeah, I wanted to just first of all say that I've been watching here from the meeting room, and there were a dozen people here who were just shaking their heads in stupefied amazement.
Yeah.
Correct.
You really, this is just astounding. My question is, and you kind of partly answered it, is are we going to see John Stanley Plaskett walking around the observatory on his own? It
I
sounds
would
like
love-
he'll be able to do that.
I would love to be able to do that. I thought of actually making him the host if I could.
That would
But-
be stunning.
Right? And I was like, how cool would that be? But then I kind of got into the rabbit hole of trying to generate his avatar based on his images, because I've done that before, but I just don't have enough good images of him. Like the head profile shots that I have, I need to find more images to be able to generate a good avatar.
We do have a built-in impersonator for John Henry Plaskett if you need one.
Yeah.
Or can connect you with them. Or
Yes. So I think that would be cool to have him in there, maybe explaining his parts. And I found quite a bit of information on him as well. So I know there's a huge book on him as well that's been written too. So yeah, so like I said, the first phase is getting all the environmental modeling, all the modeling detail done. And then from there, I think it would be smoother sailing and just setting up how everything works, because that's generally what I work on in my day job. is setting up the implementation of everything. Bill?
Would Dennis Crabtree have better pictures of him? Doesn't he?
might.
He has lots of images of the hill from the early days.
Yeah, he sent me the links that he's been uploading,
Oh,
or
okay.
a link to the archive site that he's been uploading as he scans
okay.
more and more images in. But for Plaskett, there's only a couple images on there of him. And when I
The-
search the internet, there's very little information in like Google images that come up.
Yeah, it's the full body shots you need, right?
I don't even need a full body shot. I would just need like the attire, like what they dress during that time, which there's a couple other guys wearing similar, outfits.
Darren, I wonder if BC Archives would have material for you as well.
I don't know if they did.
Yeah, they do. They have a large photo archive.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, just contact me. I'll let you know about it.
Okay. Cool.
What about Dan Posey?
Oh yeah.
He's an historian.
Be good
And
to ask.
he's written about the early days up on the hill.
Yeah. Anybody could help find information and who has access to it or who has information would be great.
Okay. Any other questions for Darren or
Let's give a round of applause.
yeah, very nice.
Thank you.
Randy, I think I've got you next on the list for wanting to say a few words.
Okay, well, great. First of all, Darren, wow. It's a hard act to follow. On the 27th at the Friends of the Dominion Astrophysical Observatory Star Party, it's games night and they want to have a kind of a panel competition between the FDAO, the NRC, and us. And they need a team of 3 people who are keen to show off some astronomy acumen, and I think we would have fun doing it. So Nathan has said yes to me. I will be up there unless there's 2 more people who are very keen, but I need at least 1 more volunteer to represent our institution. And I'd really like to know tonight, but if not, we have to put in somebody, I think by tomorrow, heavens, goes fast. Please, is there anybody who would be keen to be up at the hill on the 27th to have some fun talking astronomy in front of the crowd there? Come on, jump up, lots of volunteers.
You've got age balance, maybe you need gender balance too.
That would be great, Okay, I'm going to start pushing harder later on, but think about it while I give my little presentation. And then jump at the opportunity to have some fun. Okay, so my talk today, let's share my screen. My talk today does it work? Please work. Ha! Very good. You know what I like to do is take something that's in the astronomy news and go for a bit of a deep dive. And what happened last week is I was showing off my puzzle. And somebody, I was talking about how clever they were showing the difference between the color of Uranus and Neptune. And I think it was Gary who said, yeah, no, the recent work is saying that they're actually the same color. And sure enough, last week was January 8th, and on January 5th, in the Journal of Astronomy, there was an article that has been making into the newspapers about how the colors that are usually portrayed for these two outer planets, it wasn't that it was a cheat, it was that's how you could see the features on those planets better. Anyway, let's talk a bit about Uranus and Neptune. So wonderful William Herschel, and here imaged with his indefatigable sister Caroline, scanned the sky and found many new objects in the sky that nobody had ever seen before. But on March 13th, 1781, he saw something. He thought it was a comet at first, but on tracking it for a while, he realized that it wasn't hairy. It was just a ball, a little blue ball up there that was slowly moving, and it was the first planet that was ever seen by any human being, not classically known. So the first one that was found in a telescope. And so I looked up Uranus in our Zenfolio, and here's this wonderful drawing by Bill Weir, where Bill, you decided you needed to do it with color. I like that. So we have this lovely planet here, and Titania and Oberon. Another lovely thing is Herschel wanted to call it the Georgian star, but somebody else said, no way. They're named after Roman or Greek gods, and they said Uranus has to be the name. But because of their English discoverer, they've decided to name all of the moons around Uranus after Shakespearean characters, which I think is lovely. Anyway, so that was found but with a full survey of the sky in 1781. And it takes, I don't remember what the orbit of Uranus is, but it's, many decades. And as they tracked it for one revolution around the sun, so even as early as 1821, so 40 years later, they started seeing that Uranus wasn't playing the planetary motion game properly. It was not following a simple two-body relationship with the sun. It looked like something was slowing it down and then speeding it up. And then, working completely independently, Urbain Le Verrier in Paris and John Couch Adams in London were working on calculations, independent, but it seems Adams was being a bit noisy about it, saying what he was working on, but he didn't publish. And Le Verrier did. And so he was working on 1845, but sometime in September of 1846, Le Verrier sent letters out saying, I think there is a new planet, an eighth planet out there, somewhere around here in the sky. And a couple of days later, at the observatory in Berlin, Johann Gottfried Galle found it within 1 degree of where it was predicted to be. Now, after that, there was lots of discussion about who had priority, because Adams did talk about his work, but he didn't actually get it out. And history has now decided that Leverrier has priority in this. It's one of those classic stories of a scientific dispute. So in our club's photo collection, I saw this not very exciting picture of Neptune, but I like it. But what got me was the initials. You know, WJM is John McDonald, and DL must be David Lee. Who's RD?
Reg Dunkley.
Oh,
I might have been there.
You were there, Reg.
I was?
Yes, you were.
Well,
is it hard to see? I mean, I've never seen it. But
No, it's easy to see.
I've seen Uranus.
They're both easy to see.
Yeah.
With a telescope.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, the other thing about Uranus is that there's lots of pre-discovery reports, even by Galileo. And the story in Berlin is they used the most popular chart at the time, and they realized it was missing all sorts of stars. But then there was somebody else's much better, but unpublished chart that they had. And that's when they could really say, we've got Neptune. This is a new thing. And then the next day it had moved. Not very much. Okay. So there has been only one space probe that has gone to see Uranus and Neptune. And I remember in the 70s. So remember, this was just after Apollo, and what's next? People kept asking what's next, and the space shuttle hadn't started yet. There was Skylab at the time, but I don't know the whole story of Voyager. It'd be a really good story someday. But somebody recognized that there was the possibility of a ground tour if they could get a spaceship going like within a couple of years. If they waited past 1977, then the planets weren't going to align in a way that you could get Jupiter to slingshot to Saturn, to slingshot to Uranus, to slingshot to Neptune. But they got the funding, and they put these two amazing spaceships out, and they're still going. They're outside the solar system now, but they're still transmitting back. They decided it was more important for Voyager 1 to get really close to, what's the big one around Saturn? Big moon around Saturn, Titan?
right.
Anyway, so they sacrificed Uranus and Neptune with one of the probes so that they could get a really good view of Titan. And then Voyager 2 kept in the ecliptic and did its passage. So in 1986 to Uranus and 1989 to Neptune. Just a flyby, but they timed it so it could take wonderful pictures of the moons of each of those planets and the rings of Uranus, and it, just amazing. They just get one flyby, but they did it great. Okay, so these were the pictures that went out to press. And there's been a lot of analysis ever since. Why is Uranus so much more boring than Neptune? And it has to do with heat flow and atmospheric compositions. And what's her name? Amy Stone is the chief scientist with the program with the Hubble telescope, where every year they take a picture of each of the planets, and so they can track things like the dark spots on Neptune. And there's a really good hour-long lecture that's on the YouTube that she gave all about that, because that big dark spot, it faded and disappeared by the time that Hubble was looking at it, but other ones grew. So, you know, there's lots and lots to study about Neptune. But the topic of the day is, why do they look so different? And this was the paper that was published 10 days ago. And it was mostly about Uranus. But they felt it was important in the same paper to do this comparison with Neptune, which is kind of surprising. You know, there's this thing called shingling in academia, where you try to get as many papers as you can because you're kind of assessed on the number of papers. I think it's garbage, but that is a thing that some people do. So this could have been 2 papers, but there was a lot of overlap, and so they put them together. And what they did is they took lots of spectra, either with the Very Large Telescope in Chile or with Hubble, and they went back to the original data from the Voyager 2. And so in the abstract, we find that although the visible color of Uranus is less blue than Neptune, it is much less significant than is commonly believed, due to a long-standing misperception of Neptune's true color. And later on in the paper, although the early Uranus images were processed to yield approximately their, quote, true color, the early Neptune images were contrast enhanced to accentuate fainter features and do not accurately represent the true color of this planet. So while the public was presented this kind of vivid blue Neptune, it was because there was more contrast with the big dark spot in the blue filter than it was in the other filters. And it gets to the whole thing. All the astrophotographers keep talking about true color versus fake color. And, you know, as long as you say what you're doing, there's no problem. And you can use things like the Hubble palette, which is completely unrealistic, but it is useful for showing features, for helping understand what you're looking at. So there's no problem, but then you get like nice puzzles that you get to put together, and they look very different. So the top is the normal representation that I certainly have seen for decades. And the bottom is, you know, they give several mappings of what the eye sees. The problem is color is extremely complicated. Printing or, you know, color reproduction is a completely difficult thing, and you've got additive colors and subtractive colors. It's not easy to say, but this is one more realistic. C and D is more realistic to what colors they really are, and incidentally, very close to what Bill put into his drawing that I showed earlier. This is my last slide. So in black is how bright Uranus is as a function of wavelength. Okay, so the blues are around 300 nanometer. The reds are around 700 nanometer, 0.7 micron. And here you're into the infrared. And you see that Uranus is less bright in the blue than is Neptune with that magenta color. Where'd my mouse go? You see that? So it is true that Neptune is bluer than Uranus. And then because they have 4% methane in their atmospheres, methane, as you may know, is a very potent greenhouse gas. It absorbs infrared. And that's exactly what we're seeing with this low amount of reflection in the reds and infrareds. That is methane doing the methane thing of absorbing infrared. And that is why both Uranus and Neptune show as mostly blue, but not as big a difference as usually shown in the images. And that's the story.
Thank you very much for that. I must admit, and maybe it's the power of suggestion, but my visual observations of Uranus and Neptune and my memory of them, have left me with a distinct impression that Neptune is bluer than
Hot
Uranus.
damn, really?
But maybe that's just completely a manufactured impression.
That's how I tell them apart, because there is a definite difference in color between the two.
Oh, good.
Visually.
Yeah.
So, you know, you could talk about the photographic side of things all you want, but we've seen it with our eyeballs.
Yes, I've seen it, but
That's
it would-
great.
you can't compare them in one field of view, so.
Probably the bottom pair is, it would be visually what we would see, but I'm trying to remember. It's,
But I love that you can you've actually said,
that's how I identify it.
yeah,
That's how you tell them apart, because one is an aquamarine color and one is a more blue color.
I love that.
Yeah.
Anybody else there have that sort of opinion, or who else has looked?
Silence.
Silent.
I had a look through a scope that Sid Sidhu had up a long time ago, up on the hill when we were at our star party up at the rifle range, and I certainly remember both of them being blue because we did see both of them that same night, but I don't know whether I can actually honestly remember that they were really different, but they certainly were more blue than other things around them. It's the only time I ever have seen them is up there. So
Well, that's the first way to tell that they are planets is they have color.
Oh, not that they actually have a disk.
Yeah. Well, the disc is a giveaway too, obviously.
Yeah.
And it's big enough, you
No
can see the
twinkling,
color, yeah,
it's a bit of a disc. Pretty small disc.
yeah, it is small.
Another thing that I'm really kind of shocked by, I've seen it before, but I was reminded, is we have 3 different color codes. Dorothy's talked about this. But the green and red cones overlap like 90%. The blue cone is quite distinct. But, you know, here I am, I have green and red on my sweater, and they look completely different. But seeing that this is the data that comes into my brain is mostly going to show those 2 different color bands almost identical. It's just a tiny difference. The brain's doing some fancy stuff there between the green and the red, but the blue is a very distinct filter. If I were to design it, I would have put the peaks of the green and red further apart. They didn't ask me.
The grand designer.
Grand designer, yeah.
It is amazing though how close the spectra are. That's not what I would have expected from my visual experience.
I agree.
And it's not what, you know, on our screens with 3 colors, they are very different spectra.
Yeah.
Okay, who's going to join us on the hill on January 27? I need a volunteer. Come on, guys. It'll be fun. Don't disappoint me.
Is that a star party on the 27th?
Yeah,
What time is that?
Lauri,
You muted.
For this one, it's going to be a little bit earlier. So we're going to be starting at 6 and going till 10. So I would think the first presentation will be probably, I like the presentation for this kind of thing would be closer to 7 o'clock. And there's
Okay.
three different kind of different games that the teams will be part of, and we'll have an overall winner by the end of the evening. So go RASC.
oh, you're at a conflict of interest, Lauri.
I have I have a very definite conflict of interest. Yeah. So yeah. I'm not
But,
sure who the people are from the FDAO, but I believe that James is going to be part of the NRC one. I'm not sure if Dennis is going to be around this time. He did it last year, so.
And then for volunteering, what do you need to be done?
I just need somebody to say, I'm willing.
Yeah, I might be able to do it.
Cool, Darren.
Oh, that's fun. Bring your kids out.
Yeah, that's a late. I brought them last time,
Okay.
and I have to. I'm on duty when they're up there, so
Okay.
I'm kind of useless.
Oh, that would be great. That would be great, Darren. Ask a lot of all different kinds of things. So
Yeah.
That's why I wanted Nathan on the team.
yeah.
Trying to see. Yeah, I don't have anything booked.
Chris Gaynor,
You can do it.
Possibly. Yeah. I just got an invitation to go over to Vancouver the night before, although I'm not sure whether I'm going to take that up or not. So I will think about it.
Think quickly.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm finished.
By the way,
Good.
your talk about Uranus and Neptune remind me of a couple of things. Of course, I was fortunate enough to be at the Voyager 1 encounter with Saturn and Titan, by the way, at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory way back when. I won't tell you how many years ago that was, but that was a lot of fun. A couple of things. You know, back then, no internet, no nothing like that. You know, I was working the media there, and we would line up for 8x10 color glossies from Voyager, and of course, that's what people ran off with to reproduce all over the place. So. You know, I wonder if the history you just told would have been a little different if the internet had been around back then. Another thing was, while I was working on my book about Hubble, you know, I interviewed one of the great experts on those outer planets, Heidi Hamel, and who is also quite involved in the Shoemaker-Levy 9 collision with Jupiter. She became a bit of a TV personality back then. But I went and talked to her about you know, what other things she'd done with Hubble, and she said that the work with Uranus and Neptune with Hubble was almost an accident. She asked for time on Hubble to do observations of the moons of those planets, and so those observations, you know, she won some time on Hubble, and they made some observations, and at that time there was no interest in getting observations of the planets themselves, because we just thought, well, we got the Voyager pictures. Nothing will be better than that. But in some of these pictures of or these images they got of the moons, you know, there was they could see, you know, parts of Uranus and Neptune. And they realized that that what they were seeing was somewhat different from what Voyager had seen, you know, because we're talking about, you know, at least you know, 10 or 15 years after Voyager had been there. And much to everybody's surprise, the surfaces of those planets were more dynamic than what everybody expected. So they hurriedly ordered up, you know, asked for some time to do some observations of the planets, and since then, Hubble and more recently James Webb have made regular observations of the of Uranus and Neptune. So I think that was an interesting lesson for everybody there, and maybe not that well known to the public, but certainly to that community.
Thanks, Chris. David Lee, do you have any SIG news?
I do. Just give me just a second here, and I will bring up a little slide here. There's actually two things I want to talk about tonight. I want to talk about occultations and some things that I learned over the Christmas holidays, and also a maker SIG that seems to be emerging based on some email that I received recently. So I'm just gonna bring this up. Can everybody see that? Hello?
Yep.
Oh, you're okay? Good. So there's two things. I'll bring up the citizen science thing first. This is something that Randy talked about a couple of meetings ago, or maybe even it was last meeting. This thing about learning about near Earth objects by doing occultations. So I kind of relayed the story of Dave Bennett and myself doing this quite a number of years ago, probably over 20 years ago. But a lot has changed. Like I was thinking that when I sort of reviewed this about a year ago, it looked like everybody was still using the old video recorders and trying to sort of ease in or drift into digital recording. But I was quite surprised when I looked again. I actually joined the IOTA group, which is the International Occultation Timing Association. So they're the ones that actually announce all the things that we should be monitoring and looking at to get more information. So when I joined the group, there's a lot of talk about this thing called Astrid, and I had no idea what it was. But Mark Simpson, I'm going to actually try to, if Mark sees this, I'm going to be contacting you. But anyways, Mark is a research scientist, and he's just developed this occultation purpose-built device built on a Raspberry Pi and a camera that normally would interface to a Pi. If anybody's familiar with Raspberry Pis, they have a number of different kinds of cameras. I don't think Mark is using the official RPI cameras, but he found another camera that would fit. And he's actually developed this device that has GPS, so it's got good timing. And he's got this camera there that's able to plate solve and get to the right position. In fact, he has this thing where he pre-positions the telescope and he gets it ready, and then it just either tracks or it moves to the spot where it will be at the time of the occultation on either side, maybe a couple of minutes on either side, and then captures all the frames for doing that. So I'm really excited about that. I'm going to do a little bit more research into that. And the reason I'm mentioning it is I'm probably going to kind of get started. I'm going to start collecting my tools again and working out a methodology for this. So I'm just wondering how many people would like to join me. If you're a maker, you might be interested in this, because we could kind of cobble together something very similar to this, or we could sort of glom onto Mark's design. Now, apparently Mark will have more of these in a few months. I think he's selling them as kits. So all you would have to do is take a Raspberry Pi, connect a few cables, and provide a power source, and you've got something that's ready to go that should be able to do occultation timings. So I'm really excited about that. So let me know if you're interested, because probably will have some information groups in the coming months or weeks about this. So it's our opportunity to do citizen science. Now, something that's kind of related to that is the Maker's SIG, which would normally be this week, this Thursday. But because of timing, Jim can't really host this Thursday. So we're going to make it January the 25th. And this one was actually spurred by Zen. I don't know if Zen's here tonight, but Zen started asking me some questions about kind of a roll your own kind of imaging platform. So many of you are probably familiar with ASI Air. In fact, I know many of you use the ASI Air as a computing platform, myself included. But there are some new solutions. The big problem about the ASI Air, as good as it is restricted to ZWO equipment. So it's not free to use other types of cameras, for instance, and maybe focusing wheels. Even though it's based on this Indy standard, which is kind of open source, there have been companies like StellarMate that have sold an Indy-based machine, which basically, again, you supply a Raspberry Pi, and then you put the software on, and it behaves more or less like an ASI Air. But anyways, Zen sent me a note, and he said, David, have you seen this? But the StellarMate Pro has just been announced, and there was a reviewer that did a review on the StellarMate Pro, and it will handle any Indy-based equipment. So you're no longer really restricted by ZWO components. So I thought it might be a good time now, like for those of you who are interested in imaging and also interested in making, that there's also an opportunity to do a do-it-yourself solution as well. And that's called Astroberry. And I was just on the verge of doing that last year and I never got around to it. So with some free time around Christmas, I'm almost there. So I know that Zen has actually constructed his Astroberry already, actually. So I'm really excited about that. There's actually two, I won't go into it here because there's not enough time. But if you join or attend the Makers SIG on January 25th, I'll send a link to you if you're interested. Otherwise, if you're already a maker or part of the Maker SIG, you'll be able to attend this. Anyways, I'll go over sort of a little bit of the history of imaging platforms on computers. There's been a lot of convergence and a lot of miniaturization, and for the good. But also the commercial environment has sort of been kind of reacting to it as well. So a lot of it coming out kind of semi-proprietary, like the ZWO offering. But now it looks like there's StellarMate Pro. Brock, I think you mentioned to me there was an Ioptron solution as well that is potentially kind of open to different branding as well. And then, of course, there's Astroberry. If you don't want to use that environment and you want to use continue using a PC platform, there are sort of miniature PCs now where you can run anything you normally would have run on a desktop. So anyways, if you're interested in that, let me know. If you're not already part of the Maker's SIG, let me know and I will send you a link. And that's it, unless there's some questions I can answer for you right now.
Thanks, Dave.
Okay, you're welcome.
Lauri, do you have anything?
No, I think actually I wanted to just to remind people of the Star Party on the 27th. So we hope people will come up and join us. It should be kind of a fun night. It's if it's a nice night, I have no idea what the 27th will look like. Reg, if you've got 2 weeks ahead of you, you can kind of let us know. Sorry.
That's a long ways away, Lauri.
Yeah. But if it's nice, we haven't had telescopes up for quite a while. We had like a few little bits and pieces of things the last time we were up. But we haven't had a really nice night for a while, and I must admit it's absolutely wonderful. Since I've had my cataract surgery, I can actually see the stars, and I haven't seen them for about 10 or 15 years, and it's just wonderful. Like, I can't believe that there's real stars because I haven't been able to see them for years, and
That is
I'm so
absolutely
excited to be able to do this. So
Lauri,
hopefully
you get to start all over again.
I get to start all over again. I need to start right back at the beginning again to actually see things. It's just amazing. I even actually walk outside sometimes if I'm awake at about 3 o'clock in the morning and pad outside and go, oh, I can see things. It's really cool.
Nice.
Anyway, that's a personal thing. But that will be what we're doing on the 27th. Just in the middle of all of this, we are also doing the FDAO is doing oh, for heaven's sakes, I've totally lost it here. Where you all get together and kind of decide what you're going to do for the next little bit of time.
Strategic planning.
So thank you. I lost that completely. So I'm going to be really good at strategic planning, aren't I, Brock, when I can't remember. And we're also being helped by the Destination Victoria group to help us look ahead as to what we can do. And I think I said something before, I'm not sure whether I did, about how if anybody's got any good ideas or wants to be part of the process of putting in information or putting in some ideas or suggestions for what the FDAO can do, we're all ears so if you've got anything that you'd like to see the FDAO do, then please just throw us a line, and we'd love to have people involved. I think that would be just great. We're also, of course, looking at Randy. Have you talked about the AGM?
No.
No. Oh, okay. So February the 12th, is that the correct date?
Look,
It's a Monday.
yeah, it's
February the
instead of
12th?
Cafe. It will be only on
Yeah.
Zoom.
Yeah.
So that we can do the counting of votes easier. There's no constitution to vote on. Yay.
That's
But
all done. Yeah.
there will be an election.
Mhm.
So think of how much you like our organization and then say, I want to be part of keeping it running.
Yeah.
And talk to Reg.
Thanks for the plug, Randy. I've approached some people. People are remarkable in this club when they need help to make something happen. They all flock there like a flying squad and work furiously and stuff like that. To get them to commit to a position is a little bit more challenging. And I think COVID has improved people's ability to say no. So we're working on it.
We still need people to say yes. So that's the February 12th. And then on the 26th of, I think it's the 26th of February, which is another Monday night. Just a reminder that we are at the 4 Mile restaurant. And we'll be, I guess maybe what we should do is put out a formal formal invitation to everybody, and bring your friends and family, and we'll have a nice evening. If we're 50 people, we will have the room to ourselves, and so that would be really nice. And
We were
and
here
it's
that
just
last year, so it doesn't take much more.
no,
Yeah.
that's right. We were really close last year for that. That's right. And it's going to be the menu that will be at the restaurant. So maybe we can just kind of put some of that up so people can kind of see what the restaurant menu is. You'll just be ordering from the restaurant menu for that evening. So it's a very nice place if you've never been there. It's a very nice, cozy spot, and some good service, and hopefully we'll have a good time. David, you've got your hand up.
I
Excellent
do.
food, yeah.
I do. I'm just wondering, Lauri, would you like to have sort of a commitment that would allow us to sort of predict whether or not we're going to get close, or maybe canvas for more people if we don't?
I think we just.
Yes,
we're gonna get it.
We'll put out an invitation, and people should be able to tell us. We certainly would need a bit of a commitment for the restaurant. I mean, obviously, if something major happens and you can't come, then that's okay on the date. But we would certainly like to have a commitment for people to be able to be there. And I think it was, somebody I'd said last week, if anybody's interested in helping us just do some work around getting things organized for that night. We'll need a little bit of audio. We need to get the certificates and the prizes and everything all organized. So we do need a few people to kind of help us with that. So we'll just be looking for a few people that might want to help us with that kind of thing. All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Lauri. Does anyone else that I didn't have written down have anything tonight that they want to speak to, or questions for anyone?
Brock,
Yes,
could I please share the screen for a sec?
of course.
You're not connected.
I'm not hooked up to Zoom. I'm sorry. I might shut up.
Are you going to try to join the meeting, or are you going to pass?
Find the link right now.
Can I
Okay.
help? Connected.
Does anybody have a photograph to show us while we're waiting for Reg?
I wish.
Beautiful.
And very cloudy.
Not last couple days.
Well, I've got it running now, but that
Oh,
nothing
good.
to
What are you
show for it.
picking up? What's your picture? What are you photographing now?
Actually, Crab Nebula.
I've got something to say, Brock, if I
Oh,
could.
for sure, Ken.
I just spent a while going through past astral cafes. And on March the 14th, 2022, Randy gave an excellent talk on Shackleton. And that is playing at the IMAX theater right now. So if anybody's interested in watching it in Astral Cafe, it's March the 14th, 2022.
Thanks.
Hey, you're on.
Hello?
Yeah, you're in there now, Reg.
Well, you're there now, so now you should be able to share your screen.
Okay.
Let's see.
Is it okay for me to go ahead now?
I think so.
I have to be muted here so they can hear me on that mic, or else we get a video echo.
Mhm.
Share screen.
Success.
Just wanted to.
That's really exciting, Brad.
Okay, Randy had this talk about Uranus, so this might be appropriate for me to show some slides. I was in England in June, and an hour and a half from the Paddington station is Bath.
Really?
So you can just shoot out on a train, and it's a beautiful train ride, and get off in the beautiful city of Bath. And while my wife was exploring the Roman baths, I made a pilgrimage to Herschel's museum. And it's kind of a understated thing. I had 2 glorious hours there, and I just want to show you some pictures of it. It's on a thing number 19 New King Road, and there's the modest opening for it. And this is a plaque. It said, "Here lived William Herschel." And they put a plaque up, so it must be real. And I'll just.
They forgot Caroline.
Yeah, okay, she's a star of this thing. This lathe is in the workshop of William Herschel in the basement. And it was given to him by King George III, probably because he named his planet after him. So I think he was really quite clever in a number of spheres. At any rate, so it was delightful. This is a mirror grinding machine that his son built in the thing, and he has all sorts of other replicas of clever instruments that he designed. This is the boards that he used to cast his mirrors in. And this, speaking of Carolyn Herschel, this is a catalog of stars based on Mr. Flamsteed's observations. And what's interesting here is it also collects a collection of errata compiled by Carolyn Herschel. I guess they quite a few of the stars were wrong, and she was the one who tidied it up. So good for her. And she's strongly presented in a great selection of videos at this museum where they have a person acting in her behalf. And it's just really an entertaining thing to see. And I watched every second of it. I'll just go through some of this stuff. This is the garden behind her house. And this is where he set up his telescope and he found Uranus.
No, right there.
And well, that's what the plaque says, and I'm not going to disagree with that.
Wow.
And this is looking from the back of the house to their area. It's a very narrow little house, 4 floors, and a beautiful garden there. And I thought that it would be really kind of a big estate, dark skies and everything like that. He was on a really quite a crowded street. But at his time, looking towards the river to the south, there were no houses there. It went right to the Avon River. So he did have a good southern exposure, which must have helped him out a lot. So it was a delightful thing. I show you this picture here. It's a picture of some masonry or tiled floor in the workshop, and it was cracked because one of the mirrors that they were casting got away from them and fell on the floor and cracked all the stones. And William's brother was seriously injured in this, and they were just very lucky to get out of the room. So this sort of real tremendous history everywhere in this thing. It just
An instant of time.
Yeah, it's lovely. There's a I guess a statue of William Herschel and his sister. All sorts of steampunk stuff, a lot of musical instruments. But what I really wanted to show you was this here is a picture because as we all know, Herschel was also an accomplished musician. And this is a thing about a poster to go to the Messiah on April 15th, 1778. And if you look through all the fine print here at the back, it says, note to begin at 7:15. Tickets at 5 shillings each to be had of Mr. Herschel. So not only was he the performer, he was a ticket salesman. So just a remarkable thing. And this is what it looks like on the outside, and a pretty crowded street. It's an easy walk from the train station. If you come out that way, it'll take you maybe 10-15 minutes to get there. Well worth the time. And I think admission is by donation. And they have volunteers there who work the site. And they have a number of festivals celebrating his achievements there throughout the year. It's just a wonderful thing. So I'll leave that to So
Was 2 hours enough?
I was the most enthusiastic person there. I was kind of giddy with joy. It was a real highlight of my trip to England. And so if you've got a bit of time and you're nearby, I recommend you shoot out there.
Thank you.
And that was Paddington Station.
I believe so, yeah.
Thanks, Reg. Is there any other speakers, or it's been an hour and a half, it's coming up on 8:30, so. If there is nobody else, I think we could probably safely call it a night. It's been a very good session, lots of interesting subjects.
Good night.
Good night.